Twitter has become one of the world's largest social network platforms, with millions upon millions of active users every day. Anyone could join in for free and be able to post tweets on almost anything, but when I mean anyone, I mean anyone. Like every other platform, Twitter has its own dark side.
Hey, reach it low. Yeah. What's wrong with you? Hey, I am Brick Squad. Brick Squad, boy. What you talking about, boy? Over you up.
I tell them to listen, but they can't afford to pay attention. The nation's generation so caught up in affiliation, lost with no destinations, antecedents at graduation.
A deadly accident on I-95 in South Philadelphia Monday, just before 1 a.m. Pennsylvania State Police say Webb's alcohol level was twice the legal limit when she drove, hit and killed 2 state troopers and a man they were helping.
As the final and third installment of the Dark Knight trilogy was announced in July of 2011, DC fans were excited for the upcoming Christopher Nolan's film, The Dark Knight Rises. At the same time, questions arose on whether this movie would be as good as its previous film, The Dark Knight, when the Joker, portrayed by late legendary actor Heath Ledger, was the main antagonist. Now this time, it was Bane, played by Tom Hardy. Nevertheless, fans around the world were excited, including 27-year-old Alex Sullivan and 24-year-old Jessica Redfield from Aurora, Colorado. All over on Twitter, users were adding the hashtag The Dark Knight Rises next to the tweets to show their excitement. Jessica was described as a vibrant and full of life, and was a die-hard hockey fan, as she worked as an intern for the 104.3 The Fan, where she was also known as an aspiring sportscaster with also a wicked sense of humor. She also had dreams of starting a charity to help the victims of the Colorado wildfires. But life for Jessica suddenly became very haunting, as just 7 weeks before the Aurora Theater shooting, Jessica was present and unknowingly escaped a mass shooting that took place in the Toronto Eaton Centre Mall, where a 23-year-old Christopher Husbands opened fire at the food court, targeting 2 men suspected to have gang ties. Those 2 men died, but 5 others were caught in the gunfire and was injured. Jessica was present in the food court only minutes prior to the shooting, and instead of occupying a table, she decided to go outside for fresh air. In her blog, she wrote, "My receipt shows my purchase was made at 6:20 p.m. After that purchase, I said I felt funny. It wasn't the kind of funny you feel after spending money you know you shouldn't have spent. It was almost a panicky feeling that left my chest feeling like something was missing. A feeling that was overwhelming enough to lead me to head outside in the rain to get fresh air instead of continuing back into the food court to go shopping at Sport Chek. The gunshots rung out at 6:23. Had I not gone inside, I would have been in the midst of gunfire." As for Alex, he was described as a movie buff who always enjoyed watching movies and made film references that only his friends and co-workers would understand, as they would accompany him after work. Up until July of 2012, Alex and his co-worker friends were excited to see The Dark Knight Rises, so much so as Alex would change his Twitter profile picture to the Batman logo, showing love for the fictional superhero. Another thing to add was that the film was set to release on the 20th of July, the same day as his 27th birthday, so that day was meant to be special for Alex. Jumping to that very day, and an hour before the midnight release, both Alex and Jessica, along with Jonathan Blunk, age 26, Alexander J. Boyk, age 18, Jesse Childress, age 29, Gordon Cowden, age 51, John Laramere, age 27, Matt McQuinn, age 27, Michaela Mendick, age 23, Alexander C. Tevis, age 24, Rebecca Wingo, age 32, and Veronica Moser Sullivan, age 6. All were present inside Theater 9 for the midnight release of The Dark Knight Rises. At that time, Alex and Jessica posted what would be their final tweets. Hashtag The Dark Knight Rises. Oh man, 1 hour to the movie, and it's going to be the best birthday ever. 12 a.m. Of course we're saying The Dark Knight. Red-headed Texan Spitfire. People should never argue with me. Maybe I should get in those NHL talks. 12:22 a.m. Clearly everyone inside Theater 9 of the Century 6 multiplex were ready to experience a great time, watching their favorite fictional superhero, Bruce Wayne, returning to play the role as the Dark Knight, as Gotham were facing a bigger threat than ever. Around 399 people attended this midnight premiere, but what they all didn't know was that one attendee, the 400th one, sitting in the front row, were not planning on watching the entirety of the film, rather to commit one of the deadliest shootings since Columbine. About 20 minutes into the film, 24-year-old James Egan Holmes was sitting in the front row, as I previously mentioned, but he later left the theater by exiting through the emergency exit door beside the movie screen and walked back to his vehicle in the parking lot. It was there where he changed into protective clothing and put on a tactical gas mask. He armed himself with a semi-automatic rifle, a 12-gauge, a Glock, and 2 tear gas grenades. And then he returned back to the theater and attacked. I refuse to get into detail on what happens next, but as you can guess, both Alex Sullivan and Jessica Redfield were tragically killed, alongside the other victims I mentioned, adding 70 others were injured from all the chaos. James was quickly apprehended without any resistance as he returned back to his car and was convicted of first-degree murder and attempted murder, along with possessing an illegal explosive device. As James confessed, he booby-trapped his apartment filled with explosives, having the authorities to evacuate civilians living near his residence in order to disarm the explosives. James was found guilty of all charges and was sentenced to 12 life imprisonment sentences without parole and a maximum of 3,318 additional years. Another thing to add is that many years after the shooting, some asshole hacked into Alex's Twitter account and tweeted out, "I'm alive," which is obviously untrue and very disheartening, and just so hard to believe that there are people out there who would do this kind of bullshit on Twitter. Like this next person on the list who made tweets boasting about they are the best drunk driver until they crashed. Before that, I just want to say hi. Hope everything is going well for you, and if you're enjoying the beginning of this video, then like and subscribe. It's obvious, as that will help me and this small channel. Don't feel like doing that now? That's fine, you could wait until the end of the video. Imagine enjoying the video but won't like and subscribe?
Dude, you're weird.
Anyways, Twitter, or I'm sorry, X, for all you dweebs who prefer to call it that. But yeah, Twitter is kind of like a Wild West in some way, but no matter if you love it or hate it, you still use it, don't you? If not, then what are you using? Threads? Back to seriousness. Twitter has its own dark side, with some people on Twitter who will later be responsible for the deaths of others, like this next user. As I've said before, anyone could come to Twitter for free and be able to post tweets on almost anything, meaning Twitter will have users like 21-year-old Jayana Webb from Eagleville, Pennsylvania. Jayana, who went by Tanae_J on Twitter, was any other user, except when she will post tweets like these. As you can see, some of her tweets indicates that Jayana may be a danger on the road. Prior to March of 2022, records stated that Jayana had no major criminal offenses in the past, with only just a few minor traffic violations, including abandoning a motor vehicle in 2020. So what happened this time? Well, around midnight on March 21st, Jayana was on I-95 at South Philadelphia, where she was stopped by two patrol officers, Martin Mack III and Brendan Siska, for speeding and suspected that Jayana was intoxicated while driving. Apparently the stop only lasted about a minute when all of a sudden the two officers was dispatched to a call about a pedestrian named Reyes Rivera was walking southbound on the I-95, endangering his life and others. And so the officers left Jayana and returned their patrol car to locate Reyes. But as they left, Jayana went on Twitter and posted the following tweet. Why the cop pull me and you say I'm doing 110 and 50? And after posting that, Jayana continued on into her night, but way beyond the speed limit. The officers exited I-95 at Allegheny Avenue and traveled southbound to locate Reyes and found him and apprehended and began escorting to their patrol car until suddenly the impact was so powerful that all three men were thrown up into the air and landed on the northbound lanes. All three of them died on the scene. Webb attempted to drive past the scene where the three men were, but instead lost control and slammed into them in their vehicles. After the crash, Jayana, along with a friend who was in the passenger seat, remained there on the scene, despite a few news articles claiming they fled. The two officers during the traffic stop on Jayana before the crash never got the chance to ask her to take a breathalyzer test or any other test to indicate that she was driving under the influence. So Jayana took the test after the crash. The result? Nearly 3 times the legal limit. Jumping forward into 2023, Jayana later pleaded guilty to 3 counts of third-degree murder, along with 3 counts of homicide by vehicle while driving under the influence, being sentenced between 27 to 60 years in prison, but has been granted to remain free until she gives birth around this time in February. Before we get into the tweet, just want to mention one of my older videos, songs linked to people's deaths, where we talked about songs that indirectly or directly cost their lives or is simply linked to them. For example, a Chicago rapper who went by Lil Mark made a diss track on a rival gang by mocking the deaths of their fallen members. The diss was named as one of the most disrespectful drill tracks in history. The diss track obviously put a target on his back, and just about 3 days after he uploaded a music video on it, he was later gunned down. Reason why I'm bringing this up is because this is very similar to what happened to Lil Jojo. Although this time this is more on what he tweeted out that turned out to be a fatal mistake. In the early 2010s, the world was introduced to a new subgenre of hip-hop known as drill rap, or simply drill, originating from the south side of Chicago, as well as being a new form of gangster rap. The drill scene skyrocketed into mainstream due to its pioneering drill artists like G Herbo, Fredo Santana, Lil Bibby, Lil Durk, Lil Reese, and most of all, Chief Keef. Typically, the lyrics reflects on the rawness and troubled lifestyle on the streets, but along comes with a slight portion of its lyrics focused on associating or glorifying gang culture and violence, specifically the conflict between the two gangs, Black Disciples or BDs and Gangster Disciples, GDs, which has been going on for years, way before the 2010s. One of the early faces of the GD movement was the 18-year-old named Joseph Coleman, better known as Lil Jojo, whose troubled life began when he was exposed into the world of gang culture at an early age, along with his brother and drill rapper, Swag De Niro. Growing up in the 69th Street of the Englewood area of South Side of Chicago, where he would grow up to be part of the 069 Brick Squad set, a group part of the GD movement, Jojo wasn't a rapper until 2012. The conflict between the BDs and GDs were costing lives over the years, but what's insane is that a lot of young members between the two gangs grew up together as they likely went to school together or just have their neighborhoods close by, meaning a lot of enemies or ops knew each other in some level. Jojo apparently grew up with Lil Reese and Lil Durk back then, despite them allegedly being part of different sets. Initially not really have much beef, it was simply them not liking each other, just for being part of different communities. It was then until some sort of fight between the two gangs one day, and after this incident, the two sets began having beef both in real life and online, primarily Twitter, dissing each other and making violent threats and sometimes even cryptic confessions on supposed hits. Around this time, the drill music scene had begun in 2011, where it became some sort of speakerphone for drill rappers to share their music containing disrespect and threats towards their enemies, causing a lot of news sources and internet attention, as the rest of the world saw it as some sort of arena, seeing this conflict as some sort of sick entertainment, not as a real life issue. On March of 2012, Lil Durk released a song titled L's Anthem, where he dissed on the 069 Brick Squad set and their ally, Wooger World, rapping, "Brick Squad, I say fuck 'em. Wooger will win 'em, so it's fuck 'em," which obviously upset them, including Jojo and Swag De Niro. This diss was the reason why Jojo became a rapper after the disrespect he heard from Durk, and so he decided to diss back with his first infamous song, BDK, or 300K, on April of that year. The song was a remix off of Chief Keef's song, Everyday, who Keef was allegedly was part of 300, a group made of BD sets, including Reese and Durk. So to remix off of your rival's song and turn it into a diss towards them could definitely put a target on your back. But what's more is that in the title and lyrics, Jojo mentioned that he is BDK, which stands for Black Disciple Killer, a taunt on the BDs. It's the same as GDK, Gangster Disciple Killer, which is also a taunt, but on the GDs. This taunt escalated the conflict much further between the two gangs, resulting hundreds, if not thousands of lives, mainly lives of the young who grew up to be part of this conflict. As Jojo dropped his diss, the song took the war into the next level, as violence between the two grew. But it didn't stop Jojo to continue dissing the BDs throughout his rapping career that year. One diss after another on Durk, Reese, and Chief Keef, Jojo kept going, earning him so much attention and reputation from his gang and community, but quickly became the most hated and targeted, both in online and in real life, as Jojo had survived shootings. Jumping forward into September of that same year, where things took a turn for the worse for Jojo. According to rumors and a few articles on what happened on the 4th of that month, goes as follows. Early that day, Jojo and De Niro were riding around when they apparently spotted Lil Reese talking with someone, and so they decided to record themselves, pulling up next to him and simply shouted insults and threats towards Reese.
Hey, Reese, you little bitch. Yeah. Fuck is wrong with you, boy? Hey, I am Brick Squad. Yeah, Brick Squad, boy. Fuck is you talking about, boy? Over your little bitch. We ain't for none. We ain't for none, man. Ain't no second off. Fuck is wrong with y'all, boy?
In the end, you could faintly hear Lil Reese allegedly shouting, "I'ma kill you." More than a decade later, Reese would talk about this infamous video on a No Jumper interview, claiming that he never met Jojo prior to the incident, and Jojo's entire career was just him clout chasing. Jojo uploaded that video onto YouTube that day with the intention to troll Reese in front of the entire internet. But Jojo did not stop there, as he later on took to Twitter and to continue to disrespect Reese as he usually does in his music. Just caught Lil Reese 300 in traffic, his daddy trying to talk it out, hashtag no talking, hashtag big squad. Along with the link to both the video and another video back in August, apparently Jojo and his friends chasing both Durk and Reese in traffic.
motherfucker hawking their ass. Man, it's out here. That is for real. He up there. He up there. Hey, hurry up. He turning. They turning. They turning. Catch that light. Catch that light. VC ain't even driving. He a bitch. I'ma kill his ass. Go, go, go.
JoJo's tweets that day took the beats between the two deadly, but there's more to what happened. Later that day, JoJo was arrested for apparently shooting dice and gambling. This mugshot was taken that day, and it will later turn out to be one of the final last hours of JoJo's life. After being questioned and released that very day, JoJo went on to continue taunting Reese, Dirk, and Keith as he typically does. But it wasn't as the usual beef, as JoJo tweeted the following at around 5 PM. I'm on hashtag 069, I'm out here. This tweet was basically him dropping his location, 6900 block in Inglewood, where he spent all of his life there, his own home, where JoJo was apparently riding his bike along with a friend in their neighborhood, possibly waiting for anyone like Reese or associates with him to pop up, or was there to simply hang out. Whatever the case was, JoJo was there. In the security footage, internet sleuths claim this is the footage of JoJo and his friend getting caught in a drive-by shooting. As you just saw, JoJo, which appears to be the same shirt as the mugshot, was riding his bike with his friend who was behind him until the two looked behind their backs and see vehicles were approaching. As they continued to ride off screen, JoJo got off his bike and ran, but was struck, reportedly once in the lower back, in which the bullet entered through and traveled up to his heart and out. Meanwhile, his friend, who also got off the bike, ran the other way, being again seen on camera by themselves. JoJo was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. What's very strange about this case is that, why did he reveal this location and possibly waited around the area for something bad was to happen? It's pretty much common sense that if you were to have your current location online while having enemies who live not far from you will want to kill you, then chances are you will face danger. What makes this dark is this supposed photo of a conversation between JoJo and a friend. What are you doing? Nothing. Bored. I miss you. No, you don't. For real, I want to see you before I die. What do you mean die? You're not gonna die. You never know. Stop talking like that, for real. I am for real. I'm losing my friends every day, so I don't give a fuck no more. Was JoJo's death might be some form of suicide? Or was he not expecting anything to happen? It is true that JoJo had nearly died a few times and lost a bunch of his friends, like a 17-year-old named Aiki Muhammad, who was part of the same set as JoJo was, the 069 Risk Squad, who was tragically gunned down at a house party on July of 2011. His friends honored him by nicknaming the neighborhood Aikiville and wrote a song under the same title, in which JoJo was supposed to be part of the song to honor his friend, but he too was gone, and so his brother, SWEGGY, decided to replace JoJo's spot and honored his younger brother. After the news spread out, many mocked his death, including Chief Keef tweeting, "It's sad cause JoJo wanna be like us, hashtag LMAO," before later tweeting out that his Twitter account was hacked. I didn't know him, but he was young, just like me. I can assure everyone that had nothing to do with the tragedy though. My Twitter account was hacked. But a lot of people don't believe him, as JoJo would mock Keef along with Dirk and Reese, like one of his music videos, Tied Up, where a Chief Keef lookalike is tied up to a chair with duct tape on his face. So it isn't far-fetched for them to be somewhat pleased to hear this young kid, who will make constant death threats in his music and will taunt them both in real life and online, is now gone. Later on, after JoJo's passing, SWEGGY would speak out on Twitter towards anyone who was mocking JoJo, but would suddenly drop a bombshell. Even the ops know that motherfucker who took my bro ain't walking this earth no more. Fuck him too. While this claim remains as unconfirmed, many internet detectives begin pointing fingers on who was responsible or at least involved with the shooting. But after more than a decade has passed, it seems like only those who were close may know the answer, while for everyone else, we may never know. I guess the same thing can be said on why did this internet personality who seemed to be happy and overall just enjoying life suddenly took his own life. Twitter has also been the home of many users to share about whatever they're feeling or thinking of, like some sort of journal. As 22-year-old Frederick Eugene Bull, better known by his rapper and YouTube channel name, Freddy E, who was a beloved internet personality who always wanted to make people smile and laugh while also expressing himself through music, poetry, comedy, and blogging. But what everyone didn't know was that he was going through a very dark place that sadly he never got out of and took his own life.
Okay, listen. Hold on. Okay. Ooh, this can't hear shit. Get his ass a stereo. Brown and white, looking like a big fat Oreo. Your turn.
Now my dude, him down. He told me love him. And then they put on the fountain. Cause he's fucking ugly. This is how you do it. Walk him down. Just don't know because I come to like Scooby. Give me nothing to snack. Give me a snack. Give me a snack.
Get out my face, man. Ugly ass females do not belong in this place, man. Actually, they kinda do. This is Nathan Hale School, and it's full of dudes. And be like,
While there is not much info known about Freddy's rise to fame, all there is was he started YouTube in 2006, making him an OG YouTuber, eventually garnering over 100,000 subscribers from his comedic skits from his show Jerk TV and his artistic side, spoken word.
I can't keep lying to myself that we'll be like we once were, or never was. See, I'm no longer sure. Best friend. Where did you go? See, she deserted my side to attend to the pride of an insecure guy who believes our friendship is a lie. And the sad part about it is he might have been right. Best friend.
By watching his videos, it seems that Freddy was just a positive being from a different time back in the late 2000s to the early 2010s. So it all seems things were just okay with Freddy, right? New Year's Day, 2013. It was the first day of the new year, but it was also a very special day for Freddy. It was his 22nd birthday, and fans took to Twitter to wish Freddy a happy birthday. Excited to see what Freddy's next move for the world. What sort of music, comedy, and big things would Freddy will have in store? The amount of love for my birthday is incredible. Thank you everyone. Every tweet and text means so much. All I wanted for my birthday is love, and you've definitely given me that. I am incredibly blessed to see 22. Thank you. By the next day, a friend of Freddy made a tweet on Twitter announcing there will be a Capricorn Bash, a birthday party at the Fusion Ultra Lounge in Seattle. This was a party for all of Capricorns in the area who would be let in for free. So this was simply another birthday party for Freddy, as just earlier, Freddy uploaded what everyone didn't know at the time, the last two Jerk TV videos, both relating to his birthday and appreciating his loyal fan base.
What happened last night?
You asking me? I don't remember.
I got an idea.
What's up?
Let's do it again.
Round two?
This Friday.
This Friday?
Fusion.
Do that fusion, we gonna turn up, man.
It's going down.
Down. Damn, this is crazy. Oh, I got the one.
The party kicked off the 4th of January, with many attendees who were fans of Freddy and fellow Capricorns, just to have a great night, and a chance to meet Freddy. By looking at these images, it seems that Freddy was just having a great time, surrounded by his friends, family, and fans, just enjoying life. But to what everyone didn't know was that this was Freddy's last hours alive. I got a huge hungover. Pancho was licking my face, telling me to get up. I have a video shoot in 1 hour. Fuck my life. Waking up at around noon on the 5th of January, Freddy would at first make his usual tweets, Again, showing love for his fans. I talked about the party last night. Shout out to all the fans, friends, and family who came out last night. At the time of my life. You ladies are something else, lol. I just can't wait to drop the video. Shout out to my cousin on the camera. What video he was referring to is unknown, but very likely it's the same video shoot he was just referring to earlier. What we know is that his latest video was one of his spoken word series. This one titled Ignorance. Many believe this was the video he was talking about, but it was later debunked as a friend of Freddy's revealed that he recorded this video months prior, so it's not technically his last video. We may never see this supposed video shoot, making it lost and unreleased media. Back to Twitter. Freddy would later tweet out something alarming. And my day is ruined. It's unclear to what happened that upset him. Whatever it was, after that tweet, Freddy will make even more alarming and eerie tweets. Fuck my life. I'm about to delete my Twitter in a second. This day couldn't get any worse. I'm sorry. I smoked my first pack of cigarettes today. Been a long time since I've gone through heartbreak. It's a cold, unforgiving world if I do say. It's all bad, y'all. Cruising in the 300 Chrysler, wishing the world could be a little brighter, but all I can seem to find is this lighter. If there's a God, then he's calling me back home. This barrel never felt so good next to my dome. It's cold, and I'd rather die than live alone. It's all bad. I love you, Mom. I love you, Dad. I love you, Catherine. God, please forgive me. I'm sorry. And just like that, Freddy was gone. He would later be found with a fatal self-inflicted rifle wound, and was pronounced deceased in Renton, Washington. Fans on Twitter, including YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, were devastated over their tragic news, and will pay their respects to their beloved internet personality. Users were trying to figure out why. Why did he take his own life if he was seen to be the light of many? And so, the blame was put on Freddy's ex-girlfriend and fellow rapper, Honey Cocaine from Toronto. Even Freddy's friends were accused of the failed relationship was the sole reason Freddy died. With many tweets from Freddy, backed up this claim, tweeting out his feelings on the breakup, talking about that he loved her very much and even called Honey his future wife. Many on Twitter hated on Honey Cocaine, as well as making death threats towards her. Clearly everyone wanted to find something or someone to blame on instead of respecting Freddy and to not harass anyone. It's obvious this isn't what Freddy will want. There were also a bizarre claim that went around that Honey sacrificed Freddy to the Illuminati, as that will make her a star. After receiving so much hate, Honey herself will respond to the harassment and Freddy's death with this: "To say I caused what happened is ignorance. You know nothing about our friendship and story. Hate me if you feel. We loved each other. Say it's my fault, threaten me, whatever. I knew him well enough to know he had other things happening. I was there for him, all the time. If he was here, he wished for people to just respect him, and who he was, and what he did for all of us. He was a fucking king." Along with sharing a screenshot of their supposed last conversation between the pair, as Freddy was said this: "Speak on it. I hear this shit. I see this shit. I go through this shit. But no one I actually know, other than you, actually goes through it. Especially not enough to understand to relate. I feel like everyone is out to get me. Is it true? The devil is always out to get you in different forms. See the amount of times he technically ruined your night? Anything revolving around money is intertwined with evil. Play your cards right and keep your soul pure, cause you can be a victim in a second." This goes to show that Freddy was dealing with personal mental health and other issues that only Honey knew and was no one else's business. So for about 12 years, Freddy's motive for taking his own life remains private, and fans to this day celebrate his life through remembering his comedic, humble, and positive personality. Rest in peace.
If I was being honest, I say long as I can fuck 3 times a day and not skip a meal, I'm good. I used to work on my feet for $7 an hour. Call my mama like mama.
I want to end this off with a little message relating to this, and it's that suicidal don't always look suicidal. One could look like they got it all figured out and just living in the moment, and so there's nothing to worry about until it happens suddenly. So just want to say then, go ahead and talk to the people you love and trust, and just simply check up on them, see what they're up to. It doesn't hurt to talk to them, and if you're feeling this way, then just know, and I know you may likely heard this over and over again, but once you hear other people's stories, then you know that you're really not alone, and that help exists, always has been. Just all you have to do is reach out. Helpful links are in the description below. Thank you for watching. This has been a very difficult video to make, mainly when talking about both Freddy and the two victims of the theater shooting. Like, it's pretty scary that people's lives can end so suddenly. So again, like I said earlier, is to reach out with those you love and make sure they are safe and feeling okay. Please. More dark tweets coming soon, but in the meantime, be on the lookout for my new series, Weird Media. I'm pretty excited to be able to branch out in other types of content here on the channel. And also be on the lookout for Volume 3 of y'all favorite series, The Creepiest Police Sketches and Composites. Stick around if you want to see it. So until next time, bye.